And why don't we get started with the first one? So what are some examples of go-to-market decisions that impact systems? Lauren, could we start with you?
Sure, it's a great question. I mean, pretty much every go-to-market decision you make impacts your systems, because if you don't have the systems in place to follow along and track the go-to-market change, then you can't measure it. And we'll keep repeating what you can't measure, you can't manage. So let's say you have a sales organization change territories, change numbers of people, change, you could have pricing changes, you could have different products and solutions or different ways that you package your product. You could go into new territories. All of those would mean that you need to be able to track that in everything from the sort of quote to cash system so that you have consistency from one system to another. And I mean, we could talk about this for ages, but I bet Heidi's been there and could give some anecdotes about what happens when you don't make those changes in the systems, when you change the go-to-market.
My favorite is when I find out about pricing changes after the fact.
Oh, no.
I think we've all been there at some point in our career.
I think making a pricing change is just doing a marketing presentation. That's it, right?
Absolutely.
Who cares if your order processing system isn't set up for it?
Yes. Or the SKUs don't exist yet.
Any other examples, Heidi?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I could go. Yes, so many. I love the pricing change one you mentioned. Top of mind, unfortunately, right now is there are a lot of layoffs happening at a lot of companies. So sales model reorgs, whenever that happens, that is really important to keep in mind when you're producing board reports. That, let's start with a simple example. Opportunities created per quarter. All of a sudden, the trend line goes down because you have less sales reps. So it's really important to not only annotate whatever significant business impact happens and takes place, but also to figure out the most valuable reporting metrics. And for me, it was learning, not showing a bar graph, quarter over quarter of the dollars of ops or the number of ops, but showing the per rep productivity metrics. That is going to show a much more valuable insight to ensure if your business is going up and to the right or not, as your prior bar graph might have shown otherwise. So instead of looking in the totality, but look at it per rep. And then there's also other examples. When Brexit happened, we had British pound declined. And that changed the entire region's revenue, but it didn't mean that we were doing worse in the region. It just meant that something significant was happening outside of our control. So again, that's another important one to keep in mind. There could be things like unexpected customer churn, a mid-contract customer leaves, or someone goes bankrupt. There's always unexpected events that have to be taken into account for.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead,
Lauren.
Another big one that is top of mind for me, changes in definitions. So even things
That's
from
what I was going to say.
That's pretty top of mind right now. We're changing our definition of an MQL, and I won't go down the argument of an MQL is dead because that's another topic. But even when you're changing your definitions, that is going to have a significant impact on your reporting because your historical numbers, the baseline is no longer applicable.
Exactly. I think it's so important that go-to-market changes can affect your definition of key metrics like cost to customer acquisition. Even just what is a customer can be changed by a go-to-market change. And almost all the key SaaS metrics, at least, the industry that we're in, almost all the key SaaS metrics, and certainly your unit economics, are defined. The denominators are always the number of customers or the number of new customers or the change in customers. But if you don't have a to start off with, you have to have a consistent definition of customer. And, is the customer McDonald's? Is McDonald's one customer if you sell franchise software, or is it like 50,000? Or is it clumps of, McDonald's are one customer and then others are individual units. So it seems silly that customer is a difficult definition, but it's so critical. And every time you change the go-to-market model, you have to remember to make sure it flows through. And then to Heidi's point, when the reporting on it changes because of something that isn't really the business changing, like the British, your UK subsidiary might be doing as much business or even better, but when it's translated into dollars, it looks like they're doing less, but they're not actually, and they can't be responsible for the dollar exchange rate. Same thing with customers. If you go from one definition of customers to another, your CAC, your cost of customer acquisition, could double, but it didn't double. It's just the denominator changed. Or now you have, how many customers per customer success rep could change. And is that a change or is it just a numbers change? So you have to take all of that into account.